Hello, thank you for joining the 5 Minute Bible Study today in the book of Colossians. We continue in chapter 3, verse 2. As always, we want to get the context, so go ahead and take a look at verses 1 through 4 so you get the full context of what we're reading today. And today we're going to take a look at verse 2. It says this: Set your mind on things above, not on the things that are on earth. So there's a great memory verse. If you're looking for verses to memorize, there's a great one. Set your mind on things above, not on the things of earth. And so, what is Paul telling us here? This is a continuation of yesterday's verse. Remember, yesterday he says, Therefore, if you've been raised up with Christ, keep seeking the things above, where Christ is seated at the right hand of God. So, in verse 1, we were commanded to keep seeking, keep on seeking, to seek, to continue to seek, and to not stop seeking. But here, at some point, the thing about seeking is, Jesus told us, seek and you will find. Right? In the Old Testament, Jeremiah says that if you seek me, you will find me if you seek me with all your heart. So the objective of seeking is finding. So there's a conclusion to seeking. At some point, you don't need to keep seeking because you're done seeking, because you've completed that work. In verse 1, we're told to seek. In verse 2, we're told to set our minds. So it's kind of like looking through binoculars, if you would. You see a bird in a tree way out there in the distance. You want to get a closer look. So you grab a pair of binoculars and you're trying to look for that bird, but you can't quite find him, right? You want to seek that bird out in those binoculars. Try to find where that bird is. Sometimes you have to put the binoculars down, refocus, and find out where he is, and then try again and look for that bird through the binoculars. But once you find him, you don't keep seeking. You seek, you sought, you found. Now you start to magnify and clarify, and you get it so that the only thing you see is that bird. And that's exactly what this is about. This is about setting our minds. So first we seek with all our minds. What? We seek things in heaven. We seek things in heaven where Christ is seated. We recognize that means understanding and looking for Jesus and his word and his will. And now today we found that. So now we're going to set our mind on that. So it's an interesting concept that we're going to set our mind on it. It's the same idea that Paul has in several other places, and Jesus as well, where the idea where we do not conform to the things of this world, but we are transformed in our minds, right? So we renew our minds. Our mind is something different. Our mind is no longer what it used to be, like as it was in the world. We're not looking at earthly things. We're looking at heavenly things. So Paul gives us that big dichotomy. You could be looking at earthly things. You could be looking at heavenly things. Some people want to kind of have their feet in both sides of that. Well, I'll look at the heavenly things. I'll keep trying to look at the earthly things too. I want the things I want. I want to do the things I want to do. I enjoy my time here on earth. I know some people who've said things like, oh yeah, I know that Jesus is coming again to take me, but I hope he doesn't come soon because I want to be able to enjoy life first. As if Jesus taking you out of this world is worse than the things that are in this world. In these cases, we've got our eyes on the things of this world. And Paul's saying, don't seek the things of this world, seek the things above, and then set your mind on the things above. All the other things can go out of focus. All the other things can be outside our view as we look at what is in heaven. And what are we looking at in heaven? We're looking at Jesus. He's what's in heaven. So it's an idea that we have our mindset there. But it's not just our minds, because let's face it, if our mind is there, but our actions aren't, then we're no better than the sinners in the world. We can think all the right things, but if we're not doing all the right things, then what good is that? And in fact, that's Paul's point. When he uses this word here, this terminology of setting your mind, it's not just to think the right things, it's to do the right things. So for instance, Paul gives us examples like as in Philippians chapter 2, verse 5, he says, have the same mind that is in you that is in Christ. Have the same mind in you that is in Christ. What is that mind? To be humble. Right? But if you go through verses 5 through 11, you see the whole thing is about who Jesus is and what Jesus has done. It's not about what Jesus thinks. But yet Paul equates what Jesus has done and who he is to his mind. And he does the same thing with us. He says, whatever is true, whatever is pure, whatever is noble, whatever is right, whatever is admirable, whatever is lovely, anything that's excellent, praiseworthy, think on these things. Right? So he's telling us to think on these things, but not just so we could think on it, because the next verse is, and whatever you've seen me do, you do also. So it's about when we think these things that we do these things. So it's not just about our mind, it's about who we are, our entire selves, what we do, as well as what we think. So that's what Paul's saying. Set your mind on things above, not on earthly things. It's a choice we have to make. We want to think on these things, or we want to think on those things. That's our choice. If we are of Christ, since, verse 1, since you have been raised with Christ, keep seeking things above, and then set our minds on things above. So thank you for joining me for verse 2 in chapter 3. Come back tomorrow as we do verse 3. And if you have any questions, thoughts, or comments, go ahead and put them at the bottom in the comment section. I'll get back to you as soon as I can. Until then, have a wonderful day, and God bless you.